Hello, everyone. This is Armstrong Williams on the right side. Armstrong. Don't curse, speak English. Armstrong. Virtuous society. Armstrong. I dare you to listen. Hey, turn it up. Hey. Armstrong. Get on the right side. Armstrong. Elevate your mind. Armstrong. I'm Armstrong Williams on the right side. Armstrong. Yo, man, it's your boy K.O. And you're tuned into the most conservative of our brothers. Armstrong. The Armstrong Williams Show. Please give me a break. Grow up.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Armstrong Williams Show. I'm Nick Paige, guest hosting today for Armstrong, and I am going to be joined by our colleague Milo.mp3. Hello, Milo.
Hello.
Hey, Milo.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good.
Great.
Ready for another day.
Yeah, absolutely. Aren't we all? Well, today we're also going to be joined by two authors, Bob Dietrich and Lou Goldfarb, the author of Bulls, Bears, and the Ballot Box, How the Performance of Our Presidents Has Impacted Your Wallet. And I think they have a lot of interesting things to say, and it should be a good discussion. Lou and Bob, are you guys on the line?
I'm here.
This is Bob Dietrich. Yes, I am.
Great. Awesome to have you guys in. Well, listen, let's just start out. Just give me a sort of a broad sense and tell me about your book and what you're trying to do with it.
Lou would like to lead off?
Oh, sure. Well, what we've done in our book is, we've kind of been inspired, I think, by the fact that voters tend to vote without full information, without facts. They tend to vote based upon rhetoric and sound bites and hyperbole. And we want to put some facts behind claims that are being made by the various candidates. So what we did was we looked at 80 years of economic performance of the presidents from Herbert Hoover through George W. Bush. Mm-hmm. And during that 80-year time period, the Democrats held the Oval Office for 40 years, and the Republicans held it exactly for 40 years. So it was a great time to compare. And what we did was we looked at 12 different fair and meaningful economic meaperments that we used to evaluate the performance of each of those presidents during that time period, and we also compare the economic performance of the two parties, and the results were pretty surprising. We didn't cherry pick the data points, mm-hmm. and the end results were that of the 12 data points we used, the Democrats came out ahead on 11 of the 12.
Okay. Why do you think that is?
Why do we think that is?
Yeah.
Well, as we've looked throughout history, we feel that the Democratic policies tend to recognize that the middle class is the backbone of our country. The middle class is the engine that drives our economy. And if you look back at the presidents who did well in our study, they all advanced policies that really strengthen the middle class, whether it be FDR with his New Deal programs, whether it be Harry Truman with his Fair Deal programs, whether it be JFK, LBJ with their Great Society programs. All of those presidents tended to do well economically, and if you look at their policies, they advanced working class and middle class America.
Okay, let me just say one thing here, and then I'll get Milo in. Is it really that black and white? Like, for example, certain presidents get dealt a better hand than others. Certain conditions in the country in different decades are either good or bad. Is it really so black and white as to policies, or isn't it more of a thing where, let's say, Bill Clinton had the internet boom and the tech boom, and then unemployment got under 4%, I think, in 1999, at least for one point, whereas a Republican, like, let's say, George Bush, the economy collapsed under him. Is it really so black and white?
If I may answer that one. And forgive me, I forgot. I didn't catch your name. I'm sorry. What's your name, sir?
Nick.
Nick? Okay. Let me answer that one. I would say what
Sure.
you're saying is that some presidents are more fortunate or luckier than others, and we really don't believe in that notion at all. We believe in the reality that people create and presidents create their own luck, just like individuals go out there and through hard work and through perseverance And in the case of good presidents, through good policy making and through leadership, they create their own luck. If you want to say that Bill Clinton was lucky because of the internet, you could also go back and say, okay, that Eisenhower was lucky because of the television set. You could say that Ronald Reagan was lucky because of the desktop computer that came out that changed the way that we conducted business for the 50 years prior to that. We don't believe that. And if you really want to look at luck, look at what happened with George W. Bush. He actually inherited one of the best situations of any president in the history of this country. He inherited a consumer confidence index that was in the 140s. That's the highest. That's what he got from Bill Clinton. That's the highest that number has ever been. When George W. Bush left office in January 2009, that number was the lowest it's ever been at 25.3. So to say that some presidents inherit a good situation, and therefore they're lucky, and therefore they're going to have a better situation. Look at what happened with George W. Bush. He inherited a fantastic situation, and it turned out to be one of the most dismal presidencies in terms of our rankings. He actually ranked 10th of 11th in our ranking system. So I don't think that we don't believe in this whole notion of luck. We think that's kind of silly, with all due respect.
But that's Lou. I guess you was speaking. Lou,
that was Bob. I'm sorry.
Oh, Bob. I'm sorry. This is Milo. While what you're saying is statistically true, the U.S. business cycle has had its ups and downs, and that cycle lies in many cases way beyond the control of the policymakers. And as such, one would have to expect results in either group to fluctuate dramatically. And since we are speaking statistical facts, if we look at per annum GDP growth, Democrats for a given period 4.1%, Republicans 2.9%, Bush administration, Bush 43, 2.2%. Granted, those probably spoke specifically to that given president, but other cycles that substantially impact the economic performance of the country are substantively outside the control of the policymakers. So I don't know that we can hang our hat on who's in office.
Well, let me ask you this, Milo, if I may be candid.
Bob and I, when we wrote this book, thought about what is the fairest way to evaluate the performance of each of our presidents. And we thought about, well, how do each of us get evaluated on our jobs? We get evaluated on our jobs based upon results that occur while we're in that position. And so we took the same approach with the presidents. We looked at, okay, what were the results on that president's watch from day one when they took office to the day they left office? And we looked at 12 different economic measurements to measure that performance. And in fact, 7 of the 12 measurements take into account whether that president made better or worse the situation they inherited. So 7 of the 12 indicators are based upon growth or a decrease in that particular economic measurement. So we've tried to take that into account, whether the president inherited a bad economy or a good economy.
Yeah, I would have to agree with Bob when he.
This is Lou, by the way.
I'm sorry, Lou. I would have to agree with Bob when he speaks about the Clinton years followed by Bush 43 and his abysmal performance. I mean, no one on either side of the aisle would disagree with his consistent and well-documented failures.
With all due respect, Milo, except for Mitt Romney, who actually applauded George W. Bush not long ago, which I thought was quite interesting. So I agree with you. I think that George W. Bush's performance as a president for all of us was one of the most abysmal results the country's seen, and that clearly comes true in our rankings that we have. Placing him 10th of 11th,
as a
right
conservative,
in the bottom,
it's a sore spot for me. But I'm also a business person, and I like to pride myself on being fair and equitable. And in recent modern history, I would say Clinton was one of the best presidents we've had in recent history, for a number of reasons.
That coincides with our rankings too, so that's fine.
He comes in second in our rankings.
Sure, and if I could just move the conversation along. One of the things you say in your book, you talk about how the 5 major stock market crashes occurred under Republicans. Could you just talk about that a little bit and explain why that is?
Well, if I may, Lou, let me take this one. Again, I don't think this is mere coincidence, fellas. I think at the end of the day, we need to take a look, as Lou said earlier, we have to take a look at results. And we've had 5 major crashes in the market over the last 80 years, from Herbert Hoover through George W., Hoover had one. Of course, that was the largest one where the market crashed from peak to trough, 89.2% from the summer of 1929 till approximately the summer of 1932. Then we had a big crash during the Nixon years, during Watergate and the Arab oil embargo in 73, 74. That was about a 45 to 50% crash. Then we had the Reagan crash in October of 87, which would have been actually this week in 1987. That was a 36% crash. And then we had two crashes, not one, but two under George W. One in 2001, 2002, or 2002, I should say, and one in 2007 through early 09. And that was the largest of the five, or the largest of the Bush crashes. That was 58% from peak to trough. And the reason why we mention this is I don't think that most Americans realize that the crash or the drop in the market is not there's not an equivalency between the drop in the market and how much it takes to get that return back. In other words, during the Bush years, in the second crash of 58%, where the market was at a high of 14,156 and was at a low of 6,600 on March 9th of 2009, it's not 58% to get back to even, it's 137% to get back to even. And I think that's what most people don't realize is when we have these big crashes, it's such a big hole that takes much more to get out of than it took to get into it.
And while that's very accurate, again, the other side of that coin is that every crash in history has taken a series of events that led up to the crash. And in fact, the crash that occurred during the Bush 43 administration was greatly attributable to policies implemented during the Clinton years.
Okay, we're going to have to
why don't you elaborate on that then, please?
Right after the break, we will. Taking a quick break, and we'll be right back. Armstrong-Williams Show.
For more information on the Armstrong-Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.RightSideWire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong-Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.RightSideWire.com.
High Point University has experienced unprecedented growth during the worst economic disruption in decades. This growth is driven by a university that focuses on holistic education, on experiential learning, and on values-based living. At High Point University, every student receives an extraordinary education in an inspiring environment with caring people. See what makes High Point University extraordinary at highpoint.edu.
Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933. Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sports shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Life is full of unexpected changes. Everyone has potential to do wrong. And when they choose to do it, contact the Bucksell Group for your private investigation needs. TheBucksellGroup.com or by phone at 202-243-9746. Whether there's an instance of a cheating spouse, child custody, process service, or security, don't continue suspecting. Get closure so that you can move on with your life. Visit TheBucksellGroup.com now or call 202-243-9746. If you think it's happening, it probably is.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong-Williams.
All right, welcome back to the Armstrong-Williams Show. Let's continue the discussion. I believe Milo is speaking.
Yeah, I think, the point that I was making was that many of the problems that we're currently experiencing in the economy are, in many respects, attributable to policies implemented during the Clinton years. In fact, the Clinton mortgage policies, the early Fannie and Freddie Mac policies, were rooted in the heart of the Clinton administration, and it was those policies that began blowing the housing bubble that resulted in the epic amounts of mortgage-backed debt that ultimately were translated into derivative securities during the Bush administration. Had those
you got rid of
liberal
Glass-Steagall,
policies
too.
not been put in place during the Clinton administration, the foundation would not have existed for the current mortgage collapse.
All right, Lou and Bob, either one of you go ahead, please.
Well, I think what Milo is referring to, if I may take this one on, Lou, is this notion of redlining that was something that Clinton advocated back in 96 or 97, which basically said that banks could not go into a community and draw a red line and say, we'll loan money to people above this line, but we won't loan money to lower income people or lower middle class people below the other red line. And basically that was a blatant form of discrimination that was wrong and illegal. There's nothing wrong, in my view, if somebody has decent credit or good credit and they want to move from a tenement or apartment to a small home that they can afford and that they've got the credit worthiness to purchase, why they should not be able to do that. The notion that we were able to, banks were able to discriminate blatantly like that was something that Clinton was trying to abolish. And I think that hopefully we all would agree that that was something that was a good thing.
Well, that was part of it, but specifically,
that was the major part of what Clinton. I think derivatives were something else that were created in 1999 with the passage of the Commodity Modernization Act, and that's a whole different issue. That's
that, and there was the Community Reinvestment Act, and then when Clinton's then Housing Secretary Andrew Cuomo was in place, Cuomo forced the mortgage giants, actively forced the mortgage giants to reduce their lending criteria, which resulted in the initial subprime loans.
No, that really happened more during the Bush years. I wouldn't say. I don't think it's fair to say that happened during the Clinton years. Clinton tried to do away with redlining. He didn't say that the banks had to loan money to people who had poor credit. He said that you couldn't discriminate against people for just because they had a lower income.
Regulatory oversight policies were written by Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo was Clinton's housing secretary.
That may be true, but at the end of the day, they weren't relaxed. That there were a reasonable set of rules and regulations that banks adhered to. That those kind of went away and began to diminish and evaporate during the Bush years. That it wasn't until the Bush years that really began to take place. That the subprime event really became a mess.
Okay, great.
With all due respect to your question.
And I guess if I could jump in,
Sure.
If you're saying that there are policies enacted or not enacted by presidents that affect the performance of succeeding presidents, there's no doubt that's true. But I think our view is the president who's then in office has an opportunity to change that. The president has, in our view, is the CEO of the U.S. economy. The president has ultimate power. I mean, the president advances the agenda that Congress, considers. The president has the bully pulpit that can shape public opinion every day. The president has broad authority with executive orders and international treaty making. And the president has the ultimate legislative weapon, the veto power. So we feel like, policies from a prior president can affect a current president, but it's that president who could take steps to change things that he doesn't like.
Well, let me just get in here. That's sort of the issue I take, because I think you make some good points, but I think the statistics...
Is this Nick or
yes,
who is this?
This is Nick. This is Nick.
Okay.
I think your statistics are skewed a little bit, and as I was saying earlier before, it's not exactly black and white. It's almost unfair a little bit, because like what's George W. Bush to do? Like, is he supposed to get unemployment under 4% again? That's a really high number, and a lot of jobs were lost in the early 2000s because of NAFTA. A lot of people have pointed out, and Clinton signed that. So it just seems like you're just...
Whoa, Nick. I mean, I'm a Republican, and I can't even stand behind that thinking. I mean, yes, George W. Bush's job is, as President of the United States, to ensure that the opportunity for every American to pursue happiness exists. And that principal opportunity to pursue happiness is rooted in employment. If people are not employed, they can't pursue happiness.
Right. Obviously, I'm saying there's different peaks of employment, and getting under 4% in this country's history is really difficult. So it's almost unfair to say that, to hold Bush to the same standard as Clinton, who, as I said, had this thing called the Internet, which was almost as big a job engine as the train back in the day. And it's just, it skews the statistics. It's not as fair. And even with Barack Obama, I mean, look at the mess he inherited, and you're gonna, factor that into your equation. I mean, it doesn't seem right. I mean, the whole economy collapsed, and then he was president 4 months later. But if I could just move the conversation.
But having said that, Nick, if I may interject, just a quick question.
Sure.
It seems to me the Republican Party, by and large, has been blaming Barack Obama and his policies and the stimulus and virtually everything he's done from the date he was inaugurated, let alone
right.
in Rush Limbaugh's case, he said it was from the date he was elected that it was his
Please don't add Rush Limbaugh.
You guys have said, or the Republicans have said, it's Barack Obama's fault. No matter, regardless of what he inherited, it's entirely his fault.
Some may, but I think
say time and again.
No, that's what you heard Rush Limbaugh say. That's not a Republican.
Yeah,
okay.
Look, some may say that. Some may say that. I'm not doubting that. I think the argument is you're not seeing the type of growth, i.e., over 2%, that you'd like to see normally coming back from a recession. But if we could just hold on a sec, because I apologize at the beginning. I should have asked Lou and Bob to sort of tell us a little bit about themselves, and if you guys could just tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you came to write this book, I think that'd be great for our audience.
Lou, please.
Okay, I can go first. A little about me. I'm a CPA and also a lawyer. I practiced law, private practice for a number of years, and then I was in-house counsel at Honda for a number of years also. Before I was an entrepreneur, owned my own business for a few years before I went into the academic world, and I'm now a professor down at the University of Cincinnati College of Law. I teach our entrepreneurship clinic, where we provide free legal services to small business owners who otherwise couldn't afford lawyers. So it's a pretty cool thing for both students and business owners in the Cincinnati area to get free legal services, and for students to get hands-on practical experience. So that's a little about me. And just before Bob introduces himself, I mean, the way we kind of got into this together, writing this book, is Bob is actually my investment manager. He invests some of my money, and we would meet quarterly to review my investments, and it seemed like I'd come out of those meetings knowing more about how poorly George W. Bush was performing than how my investments were performing. So we both kind of found out that we were both political junkies to some extent. So whenever we got together, the talk would turn to politics. And Bob, maybe you can give a little more detail as to how it led to this book, but that's a little about me.
Yeah, real quickly, not to bore your audience too much, but I'm a financial consultant. I've been in the wealth management, financial planning profession for going on to 30 years. We have a wonderful group of clients up here in the Ohio area in Columbus. Lou has been one of our clients for 6 or 7 years, I believe. My partner and I, Steve Morgan, manage about $50 million or so of assets for our clients. And I decided about 4 years ago, at the tail end of the Bush administration, when I found out some of this data relative to stock market returns, I thought it would be very worthwhile to take a look at, to write a book about this, because most Americans don't vote in their economic interest as I think they should.
Mm-hmm. Okay, absolutely. And we're kind of short on time here. So wondering if either one of you could tell me, one of your big points is obviously, what do the Democrats have to do to be better communicators at this? What do they have to do? Who do they have to reach out to?
Well, that's a good question. I think they need to reach out to people like us who've done analyses like this. We've actually been very fortunate. We've been on a number of radio and TV shows over the last couple months, and I genuinely appreciate, and please thank Armstrong for us, too, when you guys see him. We genuinely appreciate being on your show today. But we've actually been on quite a few conservative talk shows, probably more conservative than liberal, in fact. And at the end of the day, we're just trying to convey the message that people need to vote in their economic interest. I believe in this notion that you should vote for your IRA, vote for your 401k plan, vote for your son or daughter's 529 plan, as opposed to voting on all the hyperbole and all the commercials that we see on television constantly. At least up here in Ohio, we're seeing it constantly. In South Carolina, you probably aren't seeing it quite that much.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ohio's got to be flooded with ads. I mean,
it's a mess. Every 5 minutes you see 2 or 3 commercials that are one bashing the other, and I think what we're saying is just take a look at the facts. Facts and history and results are important, and that's really those are the foundation of our book.
Okay. Milo, anything to add?
No, I hear what you guys are saying, and I think the data supports many of your conclusions. Having said that, I also think that the spin on it compromises the accuracy of it, because while it's true that you can look at the 20 years of Democratic presidents and 20 years of Republican presidents, if we fail to look at the mitigating factors that impacted the following 20 years, we all know that presidential policy doesn't occur in 4 years. It occurs 10, 12, 15 years after the fact. So I don't see how we just summarily discount those influences.
Well, I think what you're arguing, Milo, and correct me if I'm wrong, is this notion that there should be some sort of significant lag time between one president's policies and the next. Is that correct?
Oh,
I think there is a lag time.
I'm sorry, we're going to have to...
I guess my counter-argument to that would be, if the numbers favor the Republicans more than they do the Democrats, you wouldn't be making that argument.
Okay, well, we'd like to thank...
With all due respect, you'd be saying that everybody should be responsible for what happens on their watch.
For more information on the Armstrong-Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.RightSideWire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong-Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.RightSideWire.com.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams with an opportunity to own a piece of paradise in Nassau, Bahamas. Spectacular land prices, 8,000 square feet, 20,000 square feet lot, affordable prices, hilltop properties with views of the magnificent sea. Just call 242-677-3120 or 3121 or go to info@rightsidewire.com and leave your information.
Does your school, team, church, or charity need a new fundraiser? Do you need to work out of your home or part-time? Are you a small business that can use an additional revenue stream? Then you need Yellow Llama. Do you need affordable web services or tools to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
All right, welcome back to the Armstrong Williams Show. I'm Nick Paige, sitting in for Armstrong Williams today. We're lucky to have on the show Dr. James N. Freeman, author and PhD, author of the book BFF Economics. Dr. Freeman, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Great. Well, about your book, could you just give us just sort of an overlook about your book, just sort of what you're trying to accomplish, what you're writing about?
Okie doke. You know, I feel it's important people understand the economic problems that face this country, and I personally don't think they do. people talk about the debt, but they don't really know what it means. You hear words like fiscal cliff being thrown around and unsustainable thrown around. But these are very serious concepts that actually threaten our democracy. So what I try to do in the book is explain these concepts in simple terms. And to sum it up in a few words, kids today are going to grow up to enter the workforce with $200,000 worth of debt each.
Wow.
I mean, that's a ridiculous rock around their necks. They'll never be wealthier than our generation. That's why a lot of the college kids today are going to come back and live on your couch, because they cannot afford to really do what we did, which is be born without debt. I think it's immoral to make people who are unborn yet are going to be born into debt. And a lot of people say to me, what does that really mean to me? Whether I pay taxes or not, what does that mean to me specifically? How does that affect me? And I try to explain to them that that's everybody's share of the debt once you enter the workforce. So you will have to pay that debt back, or the U.S. will go bankrupt one way or the other. So the government obviously has to tax you, because the government makes no money. It creates no wealth. The wealth means, value. All the government can do is print money, which is valueless, and they can distribute other people's wealth. But all the wealth in the world and in this country since the beginning of time was created by business. So I'm a business supporter. I mean, one of the things that I want to happen in the next administration is that they support business, because business is where the wealth comes from. The government then can use that wealth to do what it needs to do, but business is the engine that drives all wealth in this world.
Great. Milo, anything?
No, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, that's good.
And being an entrepreneur and one who has developed a number of successful businesses, I look at the wealth that my family enjoys, and it's not the byproduct of me individually. It's the byproduct of the collective effort of all those that work within my business. That's always been the case, and I believe that will always be the case, and we need an administration that recognizes that.
The one thing that you have done as an entrepreneur, which is a blessing, is you've given other people work. You've given other people jobs. You have given other people wealth. And all businesses were started by entrepreneurs. People use the word entrepreneur to mean some inventor in his backyard or tinkering. But every business ever created was created by an entrepreneur who was willing to take the risks, use capital one way or the other, his own or others, to create something with real value. And really the blessing that you provided to the world is by giving other people employment. Would you agree?
Absolutely. In fact, I as you know, I'm on the show with Armstrong frequently. One of the things that has been a common thread, and while I don't want to show any disrespect for our previous guests, because I think the work they've done was well thought out and well intentioned, but in some respects misguided. One thing that is clear throughout the history of this country is that the entrepreneur in America has created the opportunity. And more importantly than just the opportunity, the entrepreneur, who disproportionately in America has been a Republican, but that's neither here or there for this conversation. But the entrepreneur has created the opportunity that created wealth for others, and in so doing, disproportionately contributed to the tax revenue streams of the country. So if we want to stimulate economic growth in this country, we have to back off the tax liability to the entrepreneurs, because, quite frankly, if I am paying less in taxes and there's an incentive for me to expand my business, that's where I'm going to put my money. And in so doing, I'm going to create more taxpayers.
Sure. Dr. Freeman, how bad is the debt right now? I mean, the next 10 years you talked about the debt each household is going to owe $200,000?
Correct. Each taxpayer.
Each taxpayer. Okay. I mean, what's going to happen? What's the consequence of this enormous debt we're running up?
Okay, well, there are really three. One is that because the world trades in U.S. dollars, we really don't have the option of going bankrupt. I mean, almost any country in the world can go bankrupt without too much harm done outside their borders. But if the U.S. should go bankrupt, and I'll explain what that means in a moment,
right,
the whole world collapses, because we're almost 25% of the world's economy, but the world trades in U.S. dollars, and that's the part people don't realize. So the first thing is first damage is our currency pretty much collapses worldwide, putting the world into economic chaos. Two is people use this word sustainable or unsustainable. it really means that the U.S. would go into a major depression if we can't pay our debts. It means the economic system of the world falls apart, and we're unable to pay back debts, at which point, the economy as we know it won't exist anymore, and all the value that people have developed and the wealth will basically go down, 40, 50%. And the third thing is, it makes the future economy practically impossible to grow. I mean, I think we're in a downward spiral, and spirals are very hard to get out of because they feed upon themselves. Once somebody's unemployed, they can't pay taxes. So then they get more help from the government, and they can't pay taxes,
right.
and it spirals in a negative way. So, I feel there are very serious consequences to this debt. And by the way, in addition to this almost $200,000 that'll be owed by each tax-paying family or person based on tax return, is the fact that we're putting people more in debt to the tune of $1,000 per month, each taxpayer. So not only are we not paying down the debt or getting close, we're making it bigger, but the deficit is $1,000 a month for all of us who pay taxes or kids who will pay taxes.
Right. I mean, I think it's unbelievable. I mean, if you look at an economy like Greece and how much debt they had and how much debt per person, and it just seems like the slightest thing can sort of set that off. And I mean, we're just dealing with surreal numbers at this point. I mean, what is it, 16 trillion, and it might be 20 trillion after a couple more years. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Can we ever fix the debt crisis, or is it just the way we live today as a country, as a society, as a culture, or can we fix this thing?
We can fix it. One of the things that the guys talk about in the debate is, cutting and trying to, use government money more efficiently. That is very important. But the more important thing is growth. I mean, the way Bill Clinton accomplished, really no deficit was the fact that business grew, and by taxing business that's growing, a lot more income comes in. So the only way to really solve this problem is to spend less. That's obviously very important. But even more important is to grow the economy, and that means grow private business. Again, the government distributes, can print paper, but they can't create value or wealth. That's only private enterprise. So by being a friend, that's where the BFF comes from, by being a friend to business, by not putting the boot on their neck after the BP oil spill,
right.
You encourage business to grow, and then by taxing that money, you begin to use it to pay down the debt. So it's obviously a relationship that's very important, but one of the things people often leave out is therefore you have to support business, because business is where your pocketbook is. That's where your money comes from. That's your rich daddy. Okay, so the government can't spend money it doesn't have, although it does that every day. But that can't go on forever. I mean, you can't use your credit card forever without paying the piper. So I'm in favor of growth. So if I was elected president, the first thing I would do is demonstrate clear signals to business and big and small and entrepreneurs that we're your friend. We're going to work with you.
Right.
We're going to do everything we can to help you guys grow.
Absolutely. This brings me to one point, actually, I thought was sort of telling in the debate last night, and it obviously got the most hits on Twitter, was, Obama's response about bayonets and horses with the Navy. Romney said we had the smallest Navy since 1917. I think Romney looked really bad there just because we are in this debt crisis, and to want to increase defense spending, even if it has no benefit, and to not even look at, realistic cuts in defense, I think is almost ridiculous. And, I think that was one of the big moments of the debate and one of the most effective jabs by Obama, for sure.
My feeling is, what each of them may do with foreign policy is, unknown. I mean, I do feel it's very hard to predict what's going to happen tomorrow, and I don't really know what each of them is going to do in foreign policy. It's really a very tough situation of foreign policy. It's hard to ever know if you're doing the right thing. But I do know that a wealthy America is a strong America, and we're a debtor nation right now. I mean, we really we pretend we have power, but without the power of the pocketbook, it's very hard to change people's minds. If you give a country like Egypt $2 or $3 billion a year in aid, you have a lot of power over Egypt and the way that country develops. So a strong America really is a wealthy America, and we're not really wealthy anymore. I mean, to tell you a true story, for a moment. But, Donald Trump was once walking down the street with Marla Maples, who was his wife at the time, and he said to Marla, "You see that homeless man over there? He's wealthier than me." And Marla said, "How could that possibly be?" And Donald said, "Because that man over there is worth zero. I'm in debt." And the reality of it is that's true of America. We in fact are in debt. So every penny we spend is really from China. I mean, in a weird way, we owe China the money. So if a kid is born with debt, they owe China currency as opposed to the U.S. government, really.
Yeah, he certainly was in a lot of debt 20 years ago, too. It's pretty remarkable how he got
but look
out
what
of
he
it.
did with that debt. Donald Trump, if you've ever read his Wharton thesis, his Wharton thesis was on the velocity of debt. And the premise of his thesis was that if one could borrow...
we're going to have to go to a commercial break. We'll be right back. We are on the Armstrong-Williams Show. Milo Pickney and Dr. James Freeman.
For more information on the Armstrong-Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.RightSideWire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong-Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.RightSideWire.com.
Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933.
High Point University has experienced unprecedented growth during the worst economic disruption in decades. This growth is driven by a university that focuses on holistic education, on experiential learning, and on values-based living. At High Point University, every student receives an extraordinary education in an inspiring environment with caring people. See what makes High Point University extraordinary at highpoint.edu.
Whether it's their impact on prison guards, law enforcement officials, business executives, employees, or marriage and relationships, Lorette is dedicated to changing the individual and institutions around the globe. Lorette's diverse network and training courses can help provide you with the tools you need to both wisely and confidently lead, manage, and supervise yourself as well as others. Lorette Business Network, a proven system for achieving success in your business and life. Please visit their website and begin this life-lasting journey with Lorette today. www.lorette.org.
To travelers along the road of life who have fallen asleep at the wheel, to the many who woke up in time to avert disaster and get back on the righteous path. For the ones who crashed and survived and now adhere vigilantly to a virtuous and righteous path. Finally, Armstrong-Williams' much-anticipated new book, Reawakening Virtues, gives his insights into these daily challenges and much more. Reawakening Virtues is available in bookstores and at Amazon.com.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong-Williams.
All right, we are back on the Armstrong-Williams Show with Dr. James Freeman, author of BFF Economics. Milo, I believe you had the floor before we left.
No, we were talking about debt, and Dr. Freeman, I agree with you on the corrective measure is to suppress our current debt exposure. But the reality of it is, unless we get back into a significant production mode, we have no chance to recover from the debt. Yes, we've got to become a producer nation, and we've got to become a nation of fair trade. The trade imbalance with China denies us the ability to extricate ourselves from the current debt posture that we're in. The continued permission that we provide Airbus and other nationally subsidized companies to compete against unsubsidized companies here in America denies us the ability to recover from the debt. So isn't the real discussion what specific steps we can take to overcome the production deficit so that we can correct the economic deficit?
There are. We should first of all do everything we can that supports business. But yes, there are many specific things. But I think the first one's perception. Perceptions are very important. In some respects, they're more important than reality. So things like the Keystone Pipeline, it sends a message. I mean, why aren't we doing the Keystone Pipeline? Nobody really understands it. Business has thousands of miles of this pipe already in the ground. Why stop with the final link to Canada? So yes, I can give you a million specifics we should do, but the reality of it is we should do everything to support business because business is the one place where we get our paycheck from as a government. So we have to be your best friend to Uncle Sam because Uncle Sam happens to be the one that needs the money.
Gotcha. I'm not sure I'm following the best friend to Uncle Sam since it's the very Uncle Sam who needs it that is so grossly misspending it.
Oh, without question. And, the reality is we pay 50% taxes now. I mean, when you make $1, you're going to wind up with 50 cents in your pocket because you'll spend on federal tax, state tax, local tax, real estate tax, gas tax,
right,
school tax. And when you're all done, you'll be lucky if you have 50 cents left in your pocket after you make $1. But let me bring up two things that people don't realize to show you sort of how serious this debt is. We've all heard of the gold in Fort Knox, correct? So much gold in Fort Knox. So when the government put it there, it was probably $30 an ounce. So the estimates are, nobody knows for sure, but there are 150 million troy ounces of gold in Fort Knox and held in the Federal Reserve in New York City. Nobody knows because you're not allowed to audit them, but that's a good estimate. So if we took all the gold that the U.S. government has and sold it at $2,000 an ounce, you multiply 150 million ounces, because troy ounces is just a little over a regular ounce, and you multiply that by $2,000, you only come up with $300 billion. That's 3 months worth of our government's overspending. All the gold in Fort Knox would solve this problem for only 3 months. And that's just the overspending problem. That doesn't address the debt. And the second thing that I say is that they're estimated to be, and this is this is IRS statistics, so it's pretty reliable, 225,000 income tax returns filed every year for people who make over $1 million. Now, if you tax each of those people $1 million, which of course is just absurd, but if you said to everybody earning more than $1 million in America, you have to pay $1 million to the government, that too adds up to only $300 billion. So the two things that they talk about all the time, like raising money on the rich a little bit, it's not even close to solving the problem. Even the $300 billion solutions only pay for 3 months of overspending, wasteful spending. Money we don't have. That's not money we take in. This is money we do not have to spend. So it's a very serious problem. I mean, if you take out your big guns, the gold in Fort Knox, and tax all the people making over $1 million, you still solve no problem.
Right. If you had it your way, if you were in charge and you could balance the budget, how long would it realistically take? I mean, if you got everything you wanted, how long could this take? I mean,
the answer is there's really two answers. One is I want to see the trend reverse. I mean, you can't even think about balancing the budget if you're going in the wrong direction. So we're currently going in the wrong direction to the tune of over $1 trillion per year. But the answer is 7 to 10 years. Realistically, it would probably take 7 to 10 years if the trend could reverse, which would take about 2 or 3, and then hopefully when you reverse the trend, which we haven't even come close to doing, the trend is accelerating in the wrong direction, then it would probably take another 5 to 7 years to begin to pay back the debt. But if you don't pay back the debt, there will be consequences to pay for every taxpayer and non-taxpayer. You can't get away from the fact you have to pay the piper.
Right. Well, also, one other thing you mentioned in your book, the amount of money sitting on the sidelines. I thought this was really interesting. You say there's trillions of dollars sitting on the sidelines. What are the main reasons it's sitting on the sidelines? I mean, what are the sort of the biggest objections you hear?
The estimate is $40 trillion worldwide.
Right.
That people have, businesses have, but they're not willing to spend it. Now, a lot of that money is sitting on balance sheets of U.S. corporations. U.S. corporations are flooded with cash right now. Now, why are they not spending their cash? because they're afraid. They don't know the cost of labor, which is often 50% of their overall cost of doing business. Things like Obamacare have made that unpredictable. So if you were to hire 10,000 people tomorrow or 50,000, and you didn't know the exact cost of those people would impact your bottom line in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, you would tend not to hire them, bring in temporary people or give people you have overtime, because you don't know how to predict or budget their expense. And again, it's often the largest expense for most businesses. So if you can't budget the expense, you can't predict the expense, what do? You do nothing. You wait to see who gets elected. So a lot
sit on your hands and you stall the economy.
Yeah, uncertainty in business is everything. I mean, they don't know what's going to happen.
You wait to see if you're going to get a friend in the White House. And if you don't get a friend, I could tell you right now, we're going to have another 4 years of malaise, another 4 years of basically business going, oh, well, we'll do what we can, but we're not going to invest in anything major,
right?
Because we're not sure what the laws are going to be, the tax rates are going to be, the tax code's going to be, and what Obamacare is going to cost us. Now, on the other hand, if the president comes in, let's assume it's Romney for the moment, and he is business-friendly, so I hope it is Romney. If he comes in and says, I think the opposite of the previous administration. I want to help us drill. I want to help us explore for natural gas. I want to frick, frack, and freak, like I say in my book. I want to do everything I can to help develop energy, other resources, all I possibly can. I mean, we used to be the producer of technology in the world, and now we're not. That would make a big difference. I mean, perceptions affect how you spend. Most people today are so afraid, so fearful, so much anxiety, they spend nothing. They barely go on vacations. They don't buy new cars. They don't buy houses, second houses. They don't do anything. But that's not good, because when people feel confident about the future, they go out and spend money, and that feeds back and makes the economy grow. So perceptions are very important, number one. And the second thing is you have to have a good sense of where this extra money sitting around the world on the sidelines wants to invest. And the U.S. is still the most attractive investment worldwide. There's no other place you really want to put your money other than the stable United States. But you don't want to put it anywhere if you can't see that the government is going to be friendly to your investments and not tax you 50% on things you begin to do.
Right. Go ahead, Milo.
No, the interesting piece about that, backtracking to, what's happening and why businesses are sitting on their hands right now is fear. And the reality is the fear is well justified. I was with a client a month ago here in Georgia who employs about 75 people, mid-sized business, and is absolutely stalled right now in fear of what the Obamacare decision is going to have as an impact on their ability to meet their employment needs for next year. So not only are they not doing anything now, they're stalling any expansion plans for their business to grow their business in fear of their inability to support the labor costs associated with that expansion. You multiply that times 700,000 businesses in the state of Georgia times 50 states, and you have an entire country stalled over one issue. And we have a dozen issues.
Yes, I agree. I agree completely. And people are stalled too. I mean, let's assume you have a few extra dollars in the bank. You're not going to go out and buy real estate. You're not going to go out and buy an extra home or something luxurious, because you're afraid too. I'm afraid also. America right now is paralyzed with anxiety and stress. And I used to ask all my college students, as a professor, what's the biggest gift America gives its people? And they'd all yell out, freedom, wealth. And I'd say no. What America has always given its freedom, its citizens, is freedom from fear. I mean, you could wake up in the morning not fearful. This is a very rare gift that no human beings really experience in the past 5 million years. You wake up unafraid. You're not going to starve to death. You're not going to freeze to death. And that fear, that gift is going away. People are beginning to now feel the precursors of that, which is, anxiety and stress more than ever. I mean, stress is way up in America, and that also adds to the paralyzation. People are not going to do much if they feel a lot of anxiety and stress because they're nervous.
And the worst part about it is that the people who historically have been insulated from this stress, who were the people in America that actually drove the engine of growth, are the ones feeling it now. Middle class and the lower classes have always felt the stress. But for the first time in the history of America, the upper middle class and lower upper class are feeling it too. And as a result, they're not doing anything, and they have been the principal engine behind American growth historically.
I agree, and stress, though, does filter down to everybody. If the only person who ever gave you a job was a person wealthier than you, if they're feeling stressed,
all
they
right,
don't hire you.
Thank you, Dr. M. James Freeman, PhD, author of BFF Economics. We're going to have to leave it there. Milo, thanks for joining us as well. Armstrong-Williams Show.
High Point University has experienced unprecedented growth during the worst economic disruption in decades. This growth is driven by a university that focuses on holistic education, on experiential learning, and on values-based living. At High Point University, every student receives an extraordinary education in an inspiring environment with caring people. See what makes High Point University extraordinary at highpoint.edu.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org. Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933.
Life is full of unexpected changes. Everyone has potential to do wrong. And when they choose to do it, contact the Bucksell Group for your private investigation needs. TheBucksellGroup.com or by phone at 202-243-9746. Whether there's an instance of a cheating spouse, child custody, process service, or security, don't continue suspecting. Get closure so that you can move on with your life. Visit TheBucksellGroup.com now or call 202-243-9746. If you think it's happening, it probably is.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Does your school, team, church, or charity need a new fundraiser? Do you need to work out of your home or part-time? Are you a small business that can use an additional revenue stream? Then you need Yellow Llama. Do you need affordable web services or tools to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
Home of the sweet potato pie. Even the keenest taste buds will tell you the best food on the planet. Large enough to serve you and small enough to know you. So get to Henry's at 5431 Indian Head Highway, Oxon Hill, Maryland, or give us a call at 301-749-6856.